In the eastern reaches of Jacksonville, Florida, we find ourselves at the Regency Square Mall. Well, half of it at least. The other half has been closed off and only has a Dillard's Clearance Center to its name. But regardless, let's have a look at this open half of the mall and discuss its situation. For clarification, before we go further, this was recorded during the Mall Walker Hour in 2021. It's possible a number of tenants have since closed. I don't even know if it's still open, really. But if the ceiling is anything to go by, I don't really think this mall should be. Now with that out of the way, we have a lot of history to go over this time. A company that was aptly named Regency Centers would be behind the Regency Square Mall's conception, and the mall itself would go quite a ways back to 1967, as it was built along a row of sand dunes. Original anchors would include JCPenney and Woolworth as the only recognizable names to outsiders, with others being a May-Cohens and a Furchgotts. And I have conflicting pronunciations on that name, so don't shoot me if I butcher it. The mall grew quickly in popularity, boasting a number of stores, services, eateries, and even a movie theater as an outparcel. In 1979, the Florida Times-Union reported the mall as one of the most profitable retail centers in the nation. Mall staff would also donate coins from their decorative fountains back to the local community. The mall was doing well enough to warrant a $30 million expansion, which would bring forward Sears and Ivy's in 1981. The East End would also see some love over the years as it obtained a 6-screen cinema inside the mall. Since May-Cohens didn't want to relocate, this would result in the anchor becoming a mall-through, bisecting the original mall and the expansion in half. Bisected malls like these are typically rare, but not unheard of. Throughout the years, the mall would be no stranger to musical chairs, as anchors came and went. Furchgotts would unfortunately close in 1985 as the company merged with Steinmart. While other Furchgotts stores got rebranded, Regency Centers concluded that Steinmart was too low-end for the mall. Meanwhile, May-Cohens would rebrand as May Florida before changing over to Maison Blanche in 1988. Come around the 90s, Regency Centers would sell the mall to General Growth Properties for the low price of $71.8 million. The anchor changes continued, with Maison Blanche changing over to Gayfers in 1992, and Ivy's would get acquired and vored by Dillard's. Dillard's opted to build a new anchor pad, which brought in even more inline space on the West End. Meanwhile, Woolworth would finally biff it in 1997, and that same year, the old Ivy's pad would become a short-lived Montgomery Ward, which only made it to 2001. Enjoy this look that you're about to get at the food court. I normally don't cover food courts because they're usually the busiest part of the mall, and the risk is just too great. In 1998, Dillard's acquired the Gayfers nameplate and would sell the Gayfers anchor pad to Belk, whom would open their first Jacksonville, Florida store. That same year, the mall itself got a cosmetic overhaul, bringing it to the look that we have today. The theater inside the mall would also close as AMC opted to expand the outparcel into a 24-screen cinema. But a food court was expanded in the East Wing. However, offensive behavior and gang activity was becoming an issue in the Regency Square Mall, and to counter this, a sheriff's office substation was installed as well as an updated code of conduct. And this is where things begin to go completely wrong. In 2001, when Montgomery Ward finally closed, attempts were made to fill in the vacancy, but despite talks and interest from other potentials, a furniture gallery under the name of Homeworks would open on just the ground floor of the former Anchor in 2006. And this was a short-lived Anchor as well, closing in 2009. And to make matters worse, the mall's image was becoming tainted as crime worsened in the mall and the surrounding area. The sheriff's office reported over 1,000 incidents in 2004, and this crime spree would come to a head in January 26, 2008, when a shoplifter attempted to steal from the Belk store. An officer was called on the scene to deal with the matter. Unfortunately, this ended in a shootout as the shoplifter pulled a firearm and shot the officer 4 times before being fatally wounded by the officer. This is what everybody loses sounds like. And after that, everything began to fall like dominoes in a line. Belk would close their doors in 2015, relocating to a different pad in Jacksonville. Sears, surprise surprise, would close in 2016. While Dillard's remains today as of the making of this video, they downgraded to a clearance center, while JCPenney would cling to life all the way until 2020, when they were closed as part of bankruptcy proceedings. Additionally, the mall was sold to Namdar and Mason Asset Management back in 2014. We'll talk about them in a moment. Now get this. International Decor Outlet was meant to open up 80 storefronts in the mall back in 2016, but never did. Lawsuits were filed by a Chinese company over store disputes, and IDEO cited a leaky roof being the reason they never opened in Regency Square Mall. And it was reported that they filed lawsuits against Namdar over it. This claim is also supported by other companies, like the Jacksonville Automobile and Motorcycle Museum, who initially planned to fill in the Montgomery Ward space. And to add insult to injury, it was reported that Namdar and Mason were simply painting over water-damaged spots, which only covered up the problems, allowing it to fester into mold. Namdar, I have to ask, what are you doing? Hold on, let me rephrase that in a far more insulting and condescending inflection. What are you doing? What are you doing? Is that insulting enough? So, with all that in mind, I am astonished to see this mall made it through the other side of 2020 at all. Save for a few mall walkers, customers in line for an entrance tenant, a few people in the food court, a single security guard, and the occasional worker, the corridors are very empty with only a splotch of national chains mingled among smaller businesses. Wet floor signs, buckets, and strategically placed cans and bins litter the floor, and nasty stained ceilings are readily present. Attempts have been made to transition the mall to community use, with a megachurch taking over the Belk space, and a private school moving into a junior Anchor space near the food court entrance. However, the mall's future ultimately remains shrouded in mystery. Thanks for having me, Jacksonville, Florida, and until next time, this is Doomie Grunt wishing you and the Regency Square Mall farewell.